more renewables means less of something else. You can't just keep adding everything. There's only so much electricity needed in the state. So there are, PG&E a couple months ago filed an application with the Public Utilities Commission for a rebuilding of one old power plant and an entirely new power plant out in Antioch and Oakley. And between them, they would generate about 1,300 megawatts of new electrical power. And they have an application for the PUC to authorize what's called rate recovery, which means that the PUC grants them the ability to charge us, the ratepayers, for the cost of those power plants. And this is the only way these power plants can happen is if they have rate recovery, because they're not going to pay for it themselves and take the risk. And between these two power plants, they would emit about 2,760,000 tons per year of greenhouse gas emissions, or about the same as 575,000 cars. Now, these aren't the only power plants that PG&E is proposing, and certainly not the only ones that they're running. This is just the two that we've actually filed an application against. And one of the things that one of our main arguments is that these are completely unnecessary, and we really want to bring up this issue of need with the Public Utilities Commission. So I kind of want to go over some of the myths that PG&E is saying, the reasons that they want these power plants. Myth number one is that natural gas is needed to back up renewables. And what this shows is a typical day of how much energy, how much capacity we have. That's the green line. So the green line is, this is all the power that's out there on the grid that we can dispatch if we need it. And this is a typical day in October. The red line is when the power is actually used, and that margin in between is our safety cushion, and it's a pretty wide safety cushion. The idea that we don't have enough, and this is mostly fossil power. So the idea that there's not enough fossil power out there to back up any new renewables that come on is kind of absurd, really. But that's one of the main myths of the utilities. Yes, Graham.
I know that fluctuates by the month or by the day, by the hour. Does that stay consistent throughout the year that we have that?
The margin gets the gap closes a little bit more in the summer peak time, which is also when the sun shines the brightest.
Right.
Hint, hint, solar. So yeah, I mean, but it's still, even over the summer, we have a huge reserve margin, they call it. We're nowhere near. I mean, after the 2000-2001 sort of energy crisis, big energy crisis in California, a lot of the companies kind of went on a power plant building binge, and we just have a lot more than we need now.
That red line is, did you say that's one day?
That's one day, going up till about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it looks like. It kind of tapered. You can kind of see what they project will happen, which is that it'll kind of jump up again about 8 o'clock, and then it'll just dive down. I guess people turn their TVs on at 8 and jumps up and shut them off a little bit. So myth number two is that the power plants are needed to replace once-through cooling power plants. So there are 17 natural gas power plants that use what's called once-through cooling technology. So a power plant has a turbine. The turbine has to be kept cool, and the old-fashioned way of doing that with these power plants that are about 50 years or 40 years old is to suck in seawater. So this picture is of Diablo Canyon, and you can see that big intake valve down there on the beach. That's sucking in the seawater to cool off the power plant. Well, there are 17 power plants that use that technology, although most of those power plants aren't running that much. They usually are running for that peak time summer load that we were talking about. I think they generate about 10% of California's natural gas. And there's a state policy that's being moved forward. It'll probably pass early next year that will phase out once-through cooling power plants. So this is a good thing, because cooling power plants kill billions of fish a year. Because with all that water comes all the fish, all the larvae, sea mammals, everything gets sucked into the power plant, and pretty much killed instantly. So this is good that these are being phased out, but they're really not going to have that big of a dent on the grid. And certainly in Contra Costa County, the ones that they want to close down only ran respectively 1% and 5% of the time in 2008. So it's not really a big hit to the grid to take those offline.